I know the feeling. That's why I was so glad I got it all from preparatory.
Actually, no, they're keeping me here. I'm just gonna wait.
Vacation.
Yeah, I thought I was going with the series, but the Professor Tech that's there, he actually lives in Boston, so I guess it made more sense to just have the games there.
Yeah.
Just gonna hang out here for baseball and play golf.
Yeah, some go to the zoo,
Go to the
aquarium.
zoo.
But yeah, then after this series, I jumped to NLCS.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. You know, we're gonna be going on this series.
Stays here. Where else? Yeah.
It might be the guy that's doing Boston. Yeah, his name's Ryan. It might be him. I'm not sure though. They kind of.
Do you have as good as you?
I don't know. He's not as experienced, you know.
But he's good. He's good. Dan used to do it this way.
Yeah, there you go.
He loved that.
Please.
You already know that I'm not on your way.
You must be lucky.
No, because I mean, probably the Medicare some bit of a struggle.
How did it go?
I know, that's okay. I just have to be good. Oh, it's so otherwise, it's like nothing. No, because he didn't say it.
Oh, he didn't say it.
So much.
Obviously,
You guys all know now.
we get this like double board or something kind of.
It's so dumb, because
We didn't even see that. We went in like a side door or something. Didn't even see that there was an outside. You guys were partying. Oh yeah. Really? It was good though. Like that place. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you guys went like all out. We had like basic enchiladas, like, yeah, like normal, like, we didn't know. No. We didn't know. She looked very cool. I know, next time. I know. Yeah, I know. It's wild. Oh, yeah. Right. With everything, yeah. Yeah. Right. That'd be terrible. It's so sad. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, we're going to get started with Drew Pomeranz. Who wants to start the first question? Anybody to start? Sean in the middle here.
Drew, what's different this time or this postseason, knowing that you're getting a start rather than sort of the uncertainty of last year and having a couple of bullpen appearances?
Because it's always nice to know when I'm going to start instead of sitting around waiting for that call. But I'm just excited to get out there for that first start. I'm pretty anxious for tomorrow to come. Thankfully it's a day game, so I don't have to wait around all day for a night game to get out there.
Alex?
Two questions. First, John said that you guys talked through whether or not to make the start on 5 days or maybe 7 days in Game 3. What kind of tipped that decision? And the second question is, you've said you felt great all month. Your velocity has been down. How different has it been pitching over the course of the month of September, while kind of maybe working, with a different plan of attack?
He came up and asked me what day I wanted to pitch, and I told him I was ready, whatever day he sees me in there, I'm ready for it. Yeah, I know, I guess velocity's been down a little bit, but it's more, I think, pitch usage. I've been using more two-seams, which is a pitch I don't throw as hard. So I'm not, I'm not worried about that, or I don't think about that. I think it's more of just, I kind of go out there and see what I have that day and see what I need to have to beat certain teams, and that's what was working, so just kind of roll with it.
Right here in the second round.
Your last start was also against these guys. What do you take out of that performance from Saturday going into tomorrow?
You kind of have an idea of what the guys do. It's one thing to look at them on paper, look at scouting reports and all that, or watch video, but to kind of feel out how they, they're approaching the box against me the last time. It kind of goes both ways. They got to see me and I got to see them. So, I think we'll make a game plan based off of how the last start went and kind of adjust going into it.
Drew, can you talk about your outfield defense and how important has the defense been to the success of the Red Sox this year?
Oh, it's huge. Those guys are running down every ball, tracking everything, throwing everybody out. I think we have the best outfield in the big leagues. Those guys, they can do everything. They're going to get to every single ball. They're going to throw you out if there's any chance at all, and they're going to try to. They're 100% all the time.
Pete, you've had over the course of your career different roles, and you've always thought of yourself as a starter. What does it mean to you to get a playoff start and kind of be in this position with a chance to impact the series in that way?
It's great. Like you said, I've done everything. I enjoy starting. I still think I'm a starter. I think my first postseason experience, I was in a wild card game and I didn't get to pitch. So all I wanted to do the next year, like last year, was pitch, and I got into the bullpen. So this year, I'm pretty excited, as I'm sure Chris is pretty excited about our first starts.
You feel like this year in general you're kind of able to prove your point that this is where you should be, this is the role you should have, and
yeah, I knew coming in, getting traded over last year, and I pitched all right, but there was things that I talked to Rick Porcello about too, about pitching in Fenway and adjustments that you need to make, and I think he made a huge adjustment the second year pitching in Boston, especially at home, and it's one thing to know what you need to do to pitch better or pitch in that division, when it's one to actually accomplish and work on and kind of nail down the things that you need to get better at, and I think I did that pretty good this year.
Drew, you mentioned how you had just seen them, but they had seen you too. If you had a sequence that worked well against them, is there hesitation to go back to that sequence because, okay, they might be expecting it? Like, where is that line of this worked versus they're expecting it?
I think that's where you kind of feel it out. I can, I don't know what we're going to do, but, say we go out there and I try to attack them the same way I did last time. If they if they're adjusting to it, if that's what they're looking for, then we just, we make an adjustment and switch it up.
Anything else for Drew? All right, Drew, thanks for coming in.
It's a general rule.
You should proofread your column. Try that.
Mike's going to present the World Series MVP trophy with the keys to the Silverado.
For the World Series, I was having a good morning. Am I right? It's easy to remember. I'm trying to think. Who brought it?
Mark from sales. That was last year.
Like growing up, I was like,
Seems your fourth quarter earnings are below.
Oh, that's where that, is that across the street from the ocean? Okay. Is that
Oh, you said you have a trouble.
Needs to have another good.
No one got that?
Okay, first question for John Farrell. Who wants to start? Jen?
You officially announced a Game 3 starter?
Yeah, Doug Pfister will start Sunday back in Boston.
And just what went into that decision?
A number of things. With the return of David Price and him remaining in the bullpen is one. The way Doug is throwing the ball and the action of the stuff that he's shown or brought to the mound and the starts that he's made for us. That's where we are with Pfister on the mound, Game 3.
John, can go over your roster with Nunez, the DH, and Ramirez on the bench, and then talk about your rested roster.
Yeah, there was a couple of tough decisions, as you could anticipate by the way things shook out. And when you look at the number of infielders that are on the roster, it takes into account both Pedroia and Nunez's situation. So felt like we had to carry an extra infielder. And in this case, it kept Chris Young off the roster, which, personally, that was a difficult decision and a conversation that ensued. So out of respect to Chris, just felt like wanted to give him as much and as thorough of an explanation as possible. And then with Austin Maddox, the way he's come on late in the season and thrown the baseball over Matt Barnes, where it became pretty much a head-to-head comparison with taking pretty much maybe the guy that's got more of the hot hand right now. That puts Eddie Rodriguez in the bullpen to go along with David Price as our two left-handers. So that's where we begin things.
Some more for John. Evan.
How much kind of prep has Erod had for the bullpen? And you'd said at Fenway that Pfister was not someone in consideration. He has the most relief innings. Why wasn't he someone you thought could do well in that role?
You start to factor in recent performance in a couple of these decisions and roster makeup. So that was part of it. Felt like the way choosing starter for Game 3 came down pretty much to both Doug and Rick. Felt like going into this series, putting Eddie in the bullpen is a place in which he's pitched out of before and has thrown the ball well. The 4 games in Boston gave us a little bit of a glimpse into what we would be facing for this series. So you factor in all those things and the placement of individual guys in their roles, that might be a little bit of a shift. But the fact that Eddie has pitched out of the bullpen when he's come back from the knee problem, when he's come back from other things in the past. Last year he ended up pitching out of the bullpen in the postseason, so felt like we were comfortable with putting a power arm in that bullpen.
Tyler.
John, the matchup like today, when you have Sale, who has the most strikeouts in the league, and the Astros, who strike out the least, in your experience as a pitcher, how does that usually play out? Who has, when you have that kind of combination?
Tyler, it's going to come down to executing, and particularly working ahead in the count. I think, from all the work that we've done, this team particularly, by virtue of establishing strike one or working ahead in the count, probably is a bigger swing than some other teams. It's a talented group, we know that. But I can't predict the number of strikeouts that Chris will have today. We know it's a team that strikes out the fewest number of times. We're well aware of that. But we like the fact that any time Chris Sale walks to the mound, our team's got a lot of confidence.
Jen.
Game 4, I guess you're leaning for Porcello. Is there still a chance of Sale going on 3 days as well?
I mean, there's a chance. I have no idea what today will bring. So, internally you make plans for a work routine for individuals, but then we have to see what transpires in these first 2-3 games.
Sean.
John, as you've seen in the first 2 wildcard games, starters have been knocked out very early. You obviously don't want that to happen, but in a worst-case scenario, who would be your long guy today? Well,
that's Rick. He'll work out of the bullpen the first 2 days at a minimum. So that's already accounted for internally. He's down in the bullpen. So we're equipped to do that.
How much do personal histories against pitchers play into not only who plays, but how you structure your lineup this time of year?
I can't say we've gone to a major shift away from where placement in the lineup is today. As we've dealt with our own challenges internally, whether it's guys missing time, whether it's guys elevated in the lineup where they've responded well to in Bogey's case, I think we've evolved into a lineup that has been productive, that has put together a very strong final 2 months of the season. And we're probably pretty reflective of that here today.
Last one's for John. Evan.
You normally do like a team gathering before the postseason. Did you or any players, speak to the group?
Yeah, there was a brief commentary earlier, a quick gathering. More than anything, it was to compliment them on the work that they've done to date, the challenges that we've had to face and how we've responded to those. Other than that, though, there was just some comments among us as a team.
What was the driving factor for Nunez over Hanley today?
The personal history, even though he's had 2 at-bats, I know, in the last 3 weeks or so. But even in those 2 at-bats, he's swung the bat extremely well. Hanley will be at first base tomorrow against Keuchel. Fully expect that to be the case. So we're going to need every guy on our roster. Given what we've come through the last 6 weeks or so, there's going to be contributions by everyone on this team.
Given given that Young isn't on the roster and that and Keuchel's success against lefties, would Davis be a consideration for any role other than pinch runner?
At this point, I would stick with our outfield as it is right now, yeah. And I'm well aware of Keuchel's been very good against left-handers, yes. But that, Alex, goes back into the difficulty of the conversation with Chris and that particular decision. We need the coverage on the infield, and that kind of guided this particular decision.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, John.
All happen.